from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, trade takes center stage at the G7 in France, where the president makes key announcements regarding Japan.
It's billions and billions of dollars. Tremendous for the farmers.
In China.
China called last night our top trade people and said, let's get back to the tables.
Team coverage and reaction on what this could mean for the ag industry.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. A lot of trade news coming out of the G7 summit in France. President Trump saying China is ready to end the trade war while also making an agreement in principle with Japan. Now we'll start with Japan. The agreement was announced at a news conference with President Trump, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. President Trump saying the two sides hope to sign the deal in New York next month. Now, the details of the agreement still not known, but President Trump did make one announcement.
One of the things that Prime Minister Abe has also agreed to is we have excess corn in various parts of our country with our farmers because China did not do what they said they were going to do. And Prime Minister Abe, on behalf of Japan, they're going to be buying all of that corn. And that's a very big transaction. They're going to be buying it from our farmers.
The announcement of a deal is being hailed as a victory also for the pork and beef industries. AgDay's Betsy Gibbon joins us from the newsroom. Betsy, leaders of those industries say this will help return the U.S. red meat industry to a level playing field in the world's most competitive red meat import market.
Clinton, here's what we know. According to USTR's website, back in 2018, Japan was the fourth largest export market for the U.S. And when it comes to agriculture, Japan was the third largest ag export market back in 2018 as well, importing products such as corn, soybeans, wheat, beef, and pork.
We made a very big deal yesterday with Japan, and it's one of the biggest trade deals you'll ever see.
News of a trade deal in principle with Japan receiving praise across the agricultural spectrum, with groups like the National Association of Wheat Growers saying, quote, this is a huge win. And the National Pork Producers Council saying, quote, we thank the Trump administration for negotiating a trade agreement with Japan. While farm groups praise the president, many telling AgDay details of the deal in principle have not been released.
So the details are not available for the public, but what we know is that they're working on a framework and they're trying to nail down a lot of those details. We would hope that any agreement that would be reached would at least put us on a level playing field.
Backus says he would hope any agreement would make U.S. beef competitive with countries in the updated Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. Currently, U.S. beef has a tariff rate of 38.5% going into Japan, while competitors have a rate advantage of nearly 12%, paying a lower tariff of 26.5%.
So, we're hopeful that our negotiators will be successful in being able to wrap all of this up just in the next few weeks so that we can see a level playing field in Japan very soon.
But the president did have good news for America's corn farmers.
They're going to be buying all of that corn.
Some numbers have been bandied about, but we don't have an exact number. I'm sure that's still a part of some discussion.
Salmonson says at this point, congressional approval is not needed. However, if the deal gets to be larger scale, it may be needed.
Thanks, Betsy. On to China. President Trump saying China has taken a hard hit in recent months, and he believes that Chinese leaders are sincere about wanting to reach a trade deal. It comes after China announced retaliatory tariffs last week, the president firing back with additional tariffs and ordering American companies to consider alternatives to doing business there. He announced Monday that Chinese officials called overnight, ready to make a trade deal.
We've gotten 2 calls, and very, very good calls, very productive calls. They mean business. They want to be able to make a deal. It's very important that, I think it's very important for them. Look, they've lost 3 million jobs and a lot of things have happened, and it's why President Xi's a great leader. He understands, and it's going to be great for China, it's going to be great for the U.S., it's going to be great for the world. He understands that, and he's able to do things that other people aren't able to do. So we were called, and we're going to start very shortly to negotiate. We'll see what happens, but I think we're going to make a deal because they don't want to lose their chains. They have supply chains that are unbelievably intricate, and people are all leaving.
Now, a Chinese foreign ministry spokesman in Beijing could not confirm if those phone calls had taken place. And despite reports that China wouldn't be buying any more U.S. ag products, Reuters reporting China's July soybean imports from the U.S. jumped. It reports China took in more than 911,000 tons of soybeans from the U.S. That's up from 308,000 this time last year. But the country also took in 6.42 million tons from Brazil in July. There was also movement at the G7 between the U.S. and France. French President Emmanuel Macron saying France and the U.S. reached a very good agreement which diffused tensions over a French tax on online giants like Google. The tax had prompted threats from President Trump of heavy tariffs on French wine. Macron saying France would reimburse companies who pay the tax once an international tax deal is in place. President Trump and his cabinet officials have decided to keep those controversial biofuel blending waivers in place, but will reportedly take steps to make up for the lost biofuel volumes. Now, you'll remember the ethanol industry had a lot to say earlier this month after the EPA granted those waivers. Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer saying that a plan under development would encourage the use of gas that contains 15% ethanol. It would also increase by 500 million gallons the amount of conventional renewable fuels that have to be used in mandates. But he says some confusion has surfaced regarding when the mandates would be increased. And a new Farm Journal Pulse poll shows amid those controversial biofuel policies and tariffs, farm support for the president is down a bit. This poll was conducted last week. It shows 71% of people asked support the job the president is doing. In July, that number was 79%. Now, of the farmers who currently support the president, 43% strongly approve. That's down 10 percentage points from July. Now, why did you get into farming? For some, it has something to do with the view. As meteorologist Cindy Clausen shows us today's crop comments.
Well, Clinton, sometimes there are no words to describe the beauty in farm country. Andrew Eddy of Moses Lake, Washington State, sharing the spectacular sunset photo with us on Twitter. Andrew saying that beautiful endings to long days makes it all worth it. Thanks for sharing that with us, Andrew. And now let's take a look at our wind speed forecast for the day today. The main focus is really going to be in the plain states, the northern plains and into the southern plains, where we'll see some fairly windy conditions, especially over towards the Dakotas. In the overnight hours, things slacken off in most areas, but especially in Texas, you're going to see those winds continuing. Through Wednesday, we'll see a little bit in the parts of the Southwest and now heading into the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region. I'll have a lot more on your national forecast coming up, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
We have much more on that trade agreement in principle with Japan. Could this be the answer to helping turn markets around? And later, we get an update on how the corn harvest is going in Louisiana. And AgDay is getting ready to hit the road. We're heading to this year's Farm Progress Show in Decatur, Illinois. We'll check on the mood out in the farming community amid all of this trade news and see the latest and greatest the industry has to offer. So watch for coverage this week on AgDay.
What do you call someone who does dozens of jobs? A farmer. At Pioneer, we're proud to work with generations of American farmers in the most complex and rewarding industry on earth. So from your friends at Pioneer, thank you, farmers.
President Trump has signed into law a bill that will help producers keep farming in tough financial times. Under the plan, the debt limit under the Chapter 12 bankruptcy code would be more than doubled to $10 million. The old cap was set at just $4.2 million. American Farm Bureau Federation President Zippy Duvall commenting on it, saying the law relieves some of the uncertainty farmers are facing due to export market disruptions, weather events, and declining farm income. He called it a sobering reflection of the current state of the agricultural economy. Bill Biederman with agmarket.net joining us today. Bill, we've learned several things last week, the crop tour to now trade details with Japan. What's your take on what all of this means for markets as we head into September?
I think that the Pro Farmer Tour was an excellent job done in describing and showing us for real what's out in the field and where it's at. And I think that the most revealing thing was the amount of corn that was in pre-dough stage. You know, I mean, you see it in the crop conditions report. Last week, 45% of the crop was not in dough stage yet, but it's just a number and nobody believes it. Here, there were pictures, and it makes you realize, oh my gosh, it's kind of like a reality hit. You know, you see that cob that's in the blister to milk, and you just go, what is it going to take to finish this thing? We're going to need 1,040 growing degree units to get from the blister to black layer stage, 775 growing degree units to get from the dough stage to black layer. Black layer is still 30% corn. I mean, it's not going to dry down very well. But, you know, if you stay between 75 and 55 degrees, you're going to need 69 days to get from blister to maturity. That gets you to November 7th. And to go from the dough, it's going to take till October 7th. So you're going to have between 15 and over 30% of the crop really struggling.
Demand and trade, that's another factor here. Given the trade issues over the past year, how does that influence our markets as we go through the rest of this month?
Well, we've lowered our internal demand numbers down to 14 billion from the 14.2 that we had this year, and the 14.8793, if you want to be specific, 14.8 billion bushel demand that we had in 2017. So we're knocking off 750 million bushels in demand. I mean, obviously the ethanol waivers were a disaster for the industry. And I think what POET did and what others are talking about doing was a reality shot for USDA to approach President Trump with. And, you know, the international trade policies we have are just, you know, been disastrous. So the best news on the horizon right now is the Japanese agreement. We're hoping to get the USMCA done here in the next, you know, as soon as Congress comes back. That I still think is going to be a tough battle because it's gone more than a production year. Now it's going to be going on 2 by next March. You know, they've sourced other supplies, and we have not seen that much non-Chinese demand shift over to us. Now we're hoping that it will. Some of our contacts that we have down in South America that do business with JSA are indicating that their ending stocks are going to be 10 million tons, or about 300 and some million bushels below what they're saying, because the Chinese demand has been so big. So hopefully that will shift more demand to us in the next 12 months.
All right, appreciate it, Bill. We'll be back with more Ag Day coming up in just a minute.
To contact Bill Biederman at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net. Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Meteorologist Cindy Clausen taking a look at the weather for us today, and right there, that front really kind of pushing all the rains out to the east.
Yeah, and that's really going to be the focus of the showers and some thunderstorms as we head through the day today. But unfortunately, we're still also dealing with some cooler temperatures in places where we really need some heat. Let's take a look. This cold front's really going to be the focus today as it stretches all the way from the northern parts of the lakes down into the southern plains. We will see some showers along that and some thunderstorms as well as that progresses to the east through the Corn Belt. Notice we'll also have some wraparound moisture on the back side of that, so that's going to be affecting parts of the upper Midwest and especially northern parts of the Great Lakes. Otherwise, for most of the West, we've got high pressure in control, but we'll watch for that rain continuing even along the trailing end of the front and into the eastern part of the country, where we're going to have a little bit more heat and humidity there. As we head through the day on Wednesday, everything continues to progress off to the east, with the front now heading into the eastern states. Again, that wraparound moisture, just a slight chance in those Great Lakes areas, but that low continues to pull slightly further to the north. Some showers and some thunderstorms along the southern edge of that and into parts of the southwest as well. Now, over the past 24 hours, the precipitation has for the most part, been near the front. You can almost look at that all the way from south central Canada down into the Gulf Coast and on into Florida. Now, as we add on the next 24 hours, pretty much the same. Along that front, we stretch that a little bit further to the east, but we also see more activity on that tail end of the front as well in Texas, parts of especially into New Mexico. All right, taking a look at our temperatures, we are going to be seeing some cooler temperatures remaining, and this is not good news for the Corn Belt. As we mentioned, folks trying to get those crops to finish, and we need that heat, and so we're not really seeing that as we head into the next couple of days. We do still see some 80s and 90s across most of the southern tier states, really warm in parts of the southwest, even 91 as you get up to Carson City. In the overnight hours, we're going to see those lows in the 50s, even 47 up towards Rapid City. 70s for most of the southern United States. And then tomorrow, what we're going to see is 60s and 70s for highs as you get towards the north central part of the country, some 80s and 90s in the southeast. A little bit cooler, though, with that rain, even down into parts of Texas. That's going to keep you a little cooler. Looking at the jet stream, we do have that trough that's bringing those cooler temperatures and the stormier conditions to much of the north central, northeastern United States. That trough kind of hangs on as we head through the week, kind of translates east, but then it kind of picks up a little bit more steam. You see that trough kind of rebuilding. We've got a bit of a ridge in the southwest, so that keeps those warmer temperatures there, and you got a cutoff low expected as we get into the early part of next week in the northwest. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Gillette, Wyoming, sunny and breezy today with a high temperature of 67 degrees. Grand Rapids, Minnesota, breezy with showers and thunderstorms and a high of 62 degrees. And Zanesville, Ohio, scattered showers, a high of 80 degrees.
The good news and bad news when it comes to milk production right now. And one milk that's taking the dairy world by storm. Next.
The IBM Watson Decision Platform for Agriculture, helping to feed a hungry world with the power of AI.
A mixed report about milk production. A new USDA production report shows it was up slightly for July, but the nation's herd continues to shrink. The total number of milk cows on farms was down 82,000 from July of last year and down 9,000 from the previous month. Production per cow continues to be up 17 pounds from last year, but despite that number, several states continue to improve their overall output. Colorado up almost 6%, Texas also up about the same. Georgia, South Dakota, California up more than 2.5%. A new kind of milk we've been telling you about is continuing to grow. The A2 Milk Company is announcing record financial results. It's reporting U.S. sales topping $23 million. That's a 160% rise. Globally, sales are up $1.3 billion. That's up 41%. Company leaders say it's due to consumer demand. By the end of June, the company had gained national distribution. It's now sold in more than 13,000 stores. The A2 milk comes from cows that naturally produce only the A2 protein and not the A1, which some say makes it easier to digest. Corn harvest is now underway in Louisiana. We check on this year's crop coming up.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Combines across Louisiana are harvesting this year's corn crop, and so far the results are mixed. But this year's not expected to be a bin buster. LSU Ag Center correspondent Craig Gautreaux has the story from Central Louisiana.
Combines across Louisiana are harvesting this year's corn crop, and the results are mixed. This year is not expected to be a bin-busting year because excessive rainfall since the start of planting has lowered many expectations.
That corn does stand in water. We tend to see corn yields take a big hit simply from that it receiving too much water early in the growth stage.
Scott Williams has more than 3,000 acres of corn this year, much of it in Avoyelles Parish. He has seen the effect of excessive rainfall.
Due to the plus 40 inches of rainfall, our yields are probably off 40 bushels on some of the ground that probably doesn't drain as well on some good mixed soil.
Yields on some of Williams's better drained soils have been good, helping to soften the blow. Many farmers switched acres from soybeans to corn because of trade issues and the problems with the quality of last year's bean crop.
We're up about 125 or 150,000 acres this year compared to 2018. Roughly sitting at somewhere between 525, 550,000 acres this year.
Louisiana farmers have been averaging around 180 bushels per acre the last few years, but it is doubtful they will reach that number this year. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gautreaux reporting.
And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in, spent part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in Farm Country.